Narrator, tone, serious. When I stirred awake at the dining table, my roommate Ethan and a wealthy woman sat across from me.
This is Ms. Smith. I've mentioned her to you before. Our families go way back. Her husband is a renowned entrepreneur, now making waves abroad. It's your first time meeting someone of her caliber, so please, don't embarrass me.
Ethan nudged me with his elbow, prompting me to speak. My glare, filled with a hint of menace, startled him, causing his drink to spill. The woman across from me, Ms. Smith, was in her 50s, draped in luxurious attire and exuding affluence. She had been Ethan's wealthy benefactor for 4 years.
My roommate here is a poor kid from the countryside, never seen much of the world. He's so overwhelmed by meeting someone as important as you that he can't even speak.
Ms. Smith didn't drink the wine he offered. Ethan, sensing the need to lighten the mood, started making fun of me, a habit of his.
Let me tell you something funny. This roommate of mine got into our university from a rural area, probably by sheer luck. When we started our freshman year, this fool traveled 3 days and nights by train, carrying his bedding, to report to school. He was so exhausted and swollen-footed that he could barely walk. We found out his family could only afford to give him 500 yuan a month for living expenses, barely enough for food. He even bought the cheapest standing ticket for the train. Isn't that hilarious?
Ms. Smith laughed, her plump face contorted into an awkward smile due to excessive cosmetic procedures. Narrator, tone, serious. I clenched my fists, pinching my thigh hard to remind myself that these people, with their mocking faces, were the real culprits. Their ridicule didn't humiliate me, instead, it brought back memories of a brutal torment. In my previous life, Ethan always made jokes about my poor rural background to draw attention to himself, while I constantly tolerated and compromised, eventually becoming his scapegoat. Narrator, tone, sad. What did I do wrong? Just because I came from a less privileged background, did I deserve to be their laughingstock and plaything? I laughed along, tears streaming down my face. After a while, I finally spoke.
I just haven't fully processed it yet. Ethan always mentioned you to us before.
Really? What did he say about me?
He said that despite your age, you still can't settle down, that you're unattractive and have a bad temper. Every time he sees your heavily altered face, he feels nauseous. If it weren't for your generosity, he would've.
Shut up. Are you crazy? What nonsense are you spouting? When did I ever say such things?
Ethan looked at me in disbelief. I guessed he was shocked that I had revealed his true feelings and equally stunned that someone as timid as me would dare to speak out and embarrass him.
You said it when we went to that bar called Color for your birthday. You were drunk, crying, and telling me all this. Have you forgotten?
I provided a specific time and place, making it sound convincing. Ethan was trying hard to recall. Ms. Smith's face turned ashen. She had been relaxed just moments ago, but now her chest heaved with anger. Ignoring my presence, Ethan took her hand from the table and placed it on his face, comforting her softly.
Baby, don't believe his words. He's acting crazy today. How could I ever say such things? To me, you'll always be the most beautiful.
Well, just a moment ago, they were old friends, and now she's baby. The truth always hurts. Ethan had indeed complained to me about these things in a drunken stupor in a past life. I was merely repeating his words.
Whether you said it or not, it's your mouth. How can I control it? If you didn't like the car I got you last time, I'll have Kevin take it back. I won't support an ingrate.
Mentioning the car clearly panicked Ethan. Ms. Smith had been generous with her young lover. The first time she took a liking to him, she gifted him a Maybach. This was something Ethan, who had always been vain, couldn't resist. He immediately ran to her that very night. This luxury car had a high profile on campus. Ethan would often drive it around the school, claiming it was a birthday gift from his family, earning him a lot of face. He quickly established himself as a rich kid at the start of the semester. Only I knew how he had really acquired it. After leaving the restaurant, Ethan watched as his beloved car was driven away. Having just tasted the sweetness of luxury, he turned all his anger on me.
You did this on purpose to harm me. What's your motive? I even had your best interests at heart. Kindly bringing you, a country bumpkin, to see the world, and this is how you repay me, stabbing me in the back?
I broke free from his grip and pointed to the surveillance camera above. He finally let go. I coughed for a while before recovering. You always complained about Ms. Smith to me. I thought you genuinely disliked her, so I was helping you vent your anger. Ethan was the type to bite the hand that feeds him. He enjoyed the material wealth Ms. Smith provided while secretly despising her for being old and unattractive, without any sense of gratitude. Having lived another life, I saw through his false pride and true vanity. Ethan, frustrated, pulled at his hair and lit a cigarette, taking a deep drag as if forcing himself to calm down.
Does anyone else know about this, besides you?
I shook my head, denying it. Of course, no one knew, because it never happened. Ethan visibly relaxed. He was relieved that his fake rich kid persona hadn't been exposed. I seized the moment to ask. You didn't tell me clearly before we came that you had this kind of relationship. So, Ethan, did you really sleep with her? My words, this kind of relationship, broke his composure.
I warn you, watch your mouth. You're just a country bumpkin who got into the city. Don't think that just because you got into the same university as us with your grades, you're on the same level. If you say anything inappropriate again, don't blame me for using my connections to send you back to the countryside to farm.
He threatened me viciously, but I wasn't scared at all. So what if I'm from the countryside? I've never felt that was something to be ashamed of. On the contrary, the more someone cares about something, the more they use it to hurt others. To me, he was full of weaknesses, just a paper tiger. In the following days, I didn't see Ethan at school. He had taken several days off from Miss Johnson. I guessed his beloved wife, or rather, his Maybach, was truly angry. Until one afternoon, Ethan returned, driving the Maybach again. He had a new watch on his wrist and was dressed head to toe in designer brands. He parked the car under the teaching building, choosing to make a grand entrance during class, reporting to the lecturer in front of everyone. The tension in the room was palpable. Ethan's face turned crimson as his anger boiled over.
He said that despite your age, you still can't settle down, that you're unattractive and have a bad temper. Every time he sees your heavily altered face, he feels nauseous. If it weren't for your generosity, he would've.
Shut up! Are you crazy? What nonsense are you spouting? When did I ever say such things?
Ethan looked at Ryan in disbelief. He was shocked that Ryan had revealed his true feelings and equally stunned that someone as timid as Ryan would dare to speak out and embarrass him.
You said it when we went to that bar called Color for your birthday. You were drunk, crying, and telling me all this. Have you forgotten?
Narrator, tone, serious. Ethan excused himself to go to the restroom. I knew he would come back with 2 drinks, one spiked and one not. But he was too foolish. Just like in the past, he would mix up the glasses, failing to knock me out and instead affecting Ms. Smith. Narrator, tone, serious. As soon as he left, Baldwin approached. He sat down next to me, his greasy eyes scanning me up and down.
Are you a student at South University?
Narrator, tone, serious. I didn't respond, and he offered me a cigarette, which I politely declined.
All right, quite pure, aren't you? How old are you?
17, still underage, can't smoke.
Narrator, tone, serious. Hearing underage, Baldwin hesitated before retracting his hand.
Wow, underage and already with Ms. Smith. You've got a bright future ahead.
Narrator, tone, serious. I understood his insinuation but pretended not to.
This is my first time in such a fancy place, thanks to my roommate. His family is close friends with Miss Smith's. She gives him watches and cars and often takes him out. Miss Smith is so kind and generous.
Narrator, tone, serious. Hearing close friends, Baldwin sneered. Just then, Ethan returned with the drinks. He exchanged a silent glance with Baldwin and then looked at the wine glasses in his hands. The two glasses were different sizes, but it wasn't obvious at first glance. Narrator, tone, serious. It was like watching a movie replay. Ethan glanced at each glass, hesitated, and then handed me the slightly larger one. What an idiot, with such a poor memory. It's a wonder he hasn't poisoned himself.
Here's to you, Ethan. Thanks to you, I get to experience high society gatherings.
Narrator, tone, serious. I downed the drink in one go, and Ethan, who was supposed to give the drink to Ms. Smith, also drank his in one gulp. Within seconds, I started acting, holding my head and swaying.
You don't look well. Let's get you to rest.
Yes, please, I feel dizzy.
Narrator, tone, serious. He supported me as we walked to a private room. The hallway was dark, long, and winding. The substance in the drink was strong. Soon, Ethan's steps became unsteady. I ended up supporting him, guiding him to the room I remembered. Narrator, tone, serious. I thoughtfully took off his jacket, drew the curtains, turned off the lights, and switched on the dim, romantic lighting. After settling him in, I left immediately. Narrator, tone, serious. On my way back to school, I opened my phone's photo album. Inside were intimate photos of Ms. Smith and Ethan, all taken while Ethan was unconscious. These photos were so explosive that it was no wonder Ethan had locked them separately. Any one of them could ruin his reputation. Narrator, tone, serious. I worked part-time outside the school on weekends, teaching at an interest class with my roommate, Jake. By the time we returned to school, it was nearly dark. I saw over a dozen missed calls on my phone, all from Ethan, starting from 4 p.m. and spaced out over intervals. Narrator, tone, serious. I laughed as I scrolled through my contacts. Sleeping until the afternoon, he must have been exhausted. I called him back.
Ryan, did you set me up? Why did I pass out yesterday? Why was I in that room? Was it you? I'll get you for this.
Why are you so agitated? You took me to the room and fell asleep first. The front desk said you booked that room, and then I left. What's the problem?
Narrator, tone, serious. Ethan's voice was hoarse.
It must be your doing. How could it be so coincidental? I saw you drink it. Why did it affect me?
Narrator, tone, serious. Realizing he had said too much, Ethan fell silent. In the background, I could hear the sounds of people arguing, Ms. Smith's sharp voice, and Baldwin's low growl. Both sides seemed quite agitated.
I don't understand what you're talking about. Ethan, are you having a mental breakdown? Maybe you should see a doctor.
I'm in the hospital. Are you happy now?
Without listening to his final outburst, I hung up the phone. Jake took my phone and dialed again.
Ethan, are you planning to skip the group project again? If you're free, come back and help assign the tasks.
Jake was straightforward and didn't mind offending people.
Don't bother me. If you need the computer, take it yourself. That stupid group project isn't worth anything. I'm in the hospital, don't count on me.
He hung up irritably.
Is his computer encrusted with diamonds or something? Does it produce results on its own?
I smiled knowingly. This was a good opportunity. Ethan's computer had many software programs synced with his phone. Preoccupied as he was, he wouldn't expect me to find records of his questionable purchases in his online shopping history.
Guys, come and see this. Is Ethan sick or something? I've never heard of this medicine.
3 roommates gathered around the computer. The colorful glass bottle in the picture had a label with some convoluted Thai script.
I remember now. I saw this on a foreign website. This is a banned substance.
No way. Are you sure? Why would Ethan buy something like this? Could he be planning something illegal?
Given his already tense relationship with the roommates, discovering he had bought such a thing made everyone uneasy, fearing it might be used on them. Ethan returned to the dorm late Sunday night, just as the roommates were going to bed. He came in with his suitcase. Peeking through the curtain, I saw him still wearing the same clothes from Friday. His hair, still slicked with gel, was unwashed, and his stubble and sunken eyes made him look years older. Without washing up, he kicked off his shoes and collapsed onto his bed. His phone screen lit up, and I opened the chat with Jake.
Damn! It looks like he got beaten up. His neck and face are bruised. Should we ask him about it?
I turned off the screen without replying, feeling a secret thrill because I knew those weren't bruises from a fight, they were the consequences of his own actions. Ethan was late to class again, not for the first time this term. We were leaving when he was just getting up. Professor Williams, rarely losing his temper, did so for the first time this semester. Ethan was punished by having to stand at the classroom door, listening in. It was a bizarre sight. In the middle of summer, he was wearing long sleeves, a scarf, and a mask, completely covered up.
Is this guy into cosplay? Last time he was playing the domineering CEO. What's he supposed to be today? A celebrity incognito?
His voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for half the quiet classroom to hear, causing a burst of laughter. Even Ethan at the door heard it. His fists clenched, clearly agitated. Professor Williams knocked on the blackboard, signaling the students to quiet down.
Present your group projects.
Following the usual routine, students took turns presenting, while others dozed off or played on their phones. Our group was the last to go, and we quickly grabbed everyone's attention. During Jake's presentation, the preloaded PowerPoint suddenly displayed a picture. The multimedia screen seemed to have caught a virus, with the image flashing and disappearing. It caught the entire class's attention.
Isn't that Ethan? Who's the girl?
Everyone saw it clearly. The entire class saw it. It was a close-up photo of Ethan and Ms. Smith, kissing sweetly in front of the camera. Even Ethan, who had been leaning listlessly against the doorframe, was jolted awake.
Ethan and who? Kissing on the lips, this is too much.
Judging by the age difference, it looks like a photo of Ethan and his mom.
I think so too. Isn't Ethan a rich kid? That woman looks wealthy, must be his mom.
Who knew Ethan was such a mama's boy? Still kissing his mom at this age. Ha ha ha.
The room buzzed with chatter and laughter. Ethan seemed struck by lightning, frozen in place. But when the speculation turned to a mother-son relationship, he straightened up and defended himself.
What are you looking at? Don't you all have moms at home? What's so strange about this?
Wow, he accepted it so readily. I wonder if his benefactor knows. Professor Williams knocked on the table again, and Jake was frantically trying to exit the image. Ethan, growing desperate, rushed into the classroom and cut the power. The bell rang, and the students, having enjoyed the spectacle, dispersed in small groups. Ethan stormed into the classroom, angrily throwing his backpack at Jake. Caught off guard, Jake took several hits and stumbled against the blackboard wall. I rushed to the podium to pull them apart. Jake, furious from the beating, shouted,
"What's wrong with you, Ethan? Why are you taking it out on me? It's your computer that got infected and showed those pictures."
Who told you to browse shady websites? It's your own fault.
Ethan, still agitated, tried to lash out again, but Jake and I restrained him, pinning him against the blackboard. In the struggle, his scarf was pulled off, revealing large bruises on his neck. I also removed his mask and hat. Jake, looking disgusted, recoiled as if he had touched something filthy.
Let go of me! You two must be in cahoots, trying to embarrass me. I don't believe this virus thing just happened out of nowhere.
You have the nerve to say that? You've been buying shady stuff from black market sites. If you're playing dumb, I'll make you remember.
Jake, with a hint of revenge, turned on the classroom faucet and shoved Ethan's head under the water. Ethan, drenched, continued to curse us with every foul word he knew.
Ryan, Jake, you two just wait. I'll make you pay for this.
As Ethan picked up his belongings, I stepped on his hat.
If you're not afraid of ruining your reputation, go ahead. I'll make sure everyone knows you're being supported by a woman in her 50s and that your rich kid image is just her charity.
Enough, stop it, Ryan.
Ethan's voice was barely a whisper, trembling. He finally dropped his vengeful expression, looking at me in disbelief.
So it was you. You knew all along. You did this on purpose to ruin me.
You brought this on yourself.
So, if I'm ever in a bad mood, I won't hesitate to expose your lies.
I threatened him with a chalkboard eraser, dusting his face with chalk.
Don't ruin me, and I won't ruin you. Let's call it even. I won't bother you anymore.
A simple phrase to erase everything, as if all my past sufferings were deserved. Being locked in a cage and submerged in water, whipped, having my face smashed with a brick repeatedly, and finally being consumed by fire, all these horrors dismissed with a single sentence, expecting me to let go of my grudge. It's utterly ridiculous. You never understand the pain until it happens to you.
If you want to settle this, fine. Kneel down and knock your head on the ground 3 times. If I hear it loud and clear and it pleases me, I might consider not telling anyone.
Don't go too far, Ryan. I don't think I've wronged you in any way, and now you want to humiliate me like this.
Haven't you? That restricted substance you bought, was it for your own amusement?
You didn't even drink it. Besides, I was the one who suffered. We're roommates, there's no need to go to extremes. Let's just stay out of each other's way from now on.
Don't talk to me about camaraderie. I just want to know, will you kneel or not?
Ethan clenched his teeth and knelt down with a thud, knocking his head on the ground 3 times. His eyes were filled with venomous hatred, as if he wanted to devour Ryan alive. Ryan found it immensely satisfying.
From now on, you'd better behave yourself around me. Otherwise, if I get upset, I'll make sure you go back home to work the fields.
Jake witnessed the entire scene. He didn't know the history between Ethan and Ryan, but seeing this arrogant person being subdued by Ryan made him feel equally satisfied. As they left, he even spat on the ground where Ethan was kneeling. Ryan had long known that Ethan wasn't a rich kid. His parents divorced and abandoned him, leaving him to live with his uncle's family. Before college, he relied on government scholarships and part-time jobs. He finally got into a good university, and during his freshman year, he lived a simple life like Ryan. But after catching the eye of a wealthy woman, he experienced the life of the rich and completely changed. He wanted to flaunt his newfound status and tear down others' umbrellas, thinking it would help him escape his past. He chose Ryan as his scapegoat because he thought Ryan's family background and upbringing would make him easy to control. But having faced death once, even the softest heart can harden. Not everyone deserves to be called human. Ethan behaved himself for a while. When he wasn't in class, he was with the wealthy woman, rarely seen in the dormitory, giving the rest of them some peace. After the classroom incident, Ethan publicly admitted that Ms. Smith was his mother. During this time, he also caught the eye of Emily, the department beauty. They started sitting together in class, and it was clear Ethan was in a new relationship. He began taking better care of himself, wearing cologne and hitting the gym regularly.
They must be dating. I saw them flirting in the library this morning. I almost got electrocuted sitting between them.
Sure enough, news of Ethan and Emily dating soon spread around the school. Someone even posted Ethan's photo.
This guy looks pretty average. How did Emily fall for him?
You guys don't know. He drives a Maybach.
No wonder, he's a rich kid.
If I were Miss Smith, I wouldn't tolerate it either. No wonder she hasn't been going out much lately. She must be planning to cut ties with her wealthy benefactor.
Only I knew that, based on the timing, besides this reason, Ms. Smith's husband was coming back. This gave him the chance to pursue his goddess. It just needed a little more push. At least before that man returned, things had to escalate. Without me as the scapegoat this time, I was curious to see how Ethan would handle the mess. Ethan had become quite famous at school in recent days, immersed in a romantic relationship with his goddess. They attended classes together, ate at the cafeteria together, and even signed up to co-host the school's anniversary celebration. They were hailed by classmates as the golden couple of this year's celebration. Ethan thoroughly enjoyed the adulation, becoming quite conceited. He seemed to forget that I held his biggest secret. The more he reveled in his success, the more I wanted to see him fall. Being lifted to the clouds only to have your legs broken on the way down is the kind of despair that truly devastates. At the anniversary celebration, Ethan wore a custom-tailored suit, exuding confidence, holding Emily's hand as she wore a puffy gown. The audience gasped in awe. Ethan and Emily gracefully took the stage, hand in hand, to speak multiple times. The performances were dull, and I stood on a bench at the edge of the crowd, the best spot to see the sea of heads in the venue. As the performances were about to end, the person I was waiting for hadn't arrived, making me anxious. I had texted Ms. Smith this morning, reminding her to watch the show. Had she not received it, or did she not believe me? Just as I was getting worried, the event ended. Students began to get up and drag their chairs to leave.
Everyone, please wait for 2 minutes. I need you to witness something.
As soon as Ethan said this, everyone sat back down. Suddenly, he knelt on one knee in front of Emily, holding a bouquet of flowers.
Emily, I've liked you for a long time. Will you be my girlfriend?
Emily covered her mouth shyly, and the crowd started cheering, urging her to say yes. Amidst the uproar, a plastic chair was suddenly thrown onto the stage, knocking the flowers out of Ethan's hands.
Ethan, you ungrateful wretch! I've been taking care of you, and this is how you repay me? No wonder you've been saying you're busy lately. Turns out you've been fooling around with this vixen.
Ms. Smith stood at the entrance of the venue, hands on her hips, her voice louder than Ethan's with a microphone.
Who is she, Ethan?
Ethan couldn't believe Ms. Smith had come to the school herself, stammering, not knowing what to say.
Miss Smith, why are you here in person?
Why can't I be here? If I didn't come, were you planning to use my money to support someone else? Ethan!
Emily started crying.
Who is she, Ethan? Speak up.
Let me explain, Emily. She and I, it's not what you think.
A crisp, resounding slap.
Not what? Are you planning to cut ties with me and start anew? Fine. I can't believe I fell out with Mr. Brown over your mess, and this is how you repay me?
Ethan's face turned pale, and he immediately knelt down, pleading.
Sis, please stop. I'm begging you.
Ms. Smith crossed her arms and let out a cold snort.
Hey, isn't this Ethan's mom?
Yeah, no wonder she looks so familiar. This lady is Ethan's mom. She's really strict.
Ms. Smith was triggered by being called lady repeatedly and let out an angry roar, silencing the entire room.
He's my kept man.
What initially seemed like a disappointed mother disciplining her rebellious son turned out to be a far more scandalous situation. This three-person comedy act outshone all other performances that night.
How shameless, truly shameless. Juggling two relationships isn't supposed to be played like this.
As the act concluded, Emily ran off in tears, and Ethan slinked away with the wealthy woman. Ethan's carefully crafted image crumbled in an instant. The campus gossip network, a massive information hub, quickly spread the news of his scandal. Those who once flattered and followed him immediately turned against him, mocking and ridiculing him. He had offended many people during his brief period of sudden wealth. The more glorious he once was, the more miserable he became. Among the male students, he was now ostracized, with no one willing to associate with him. He had become a pariah, someone everyone wanted to avoid. Emily, having seen the truth, completely ignored Ethan after that incident.
I knew he resented me. I guessed he had long suspected my involvement in the matter, but he didn't dare confront me because I held something even more important to him.
Today's City News section featured a headline that caught my attention. The richest man in South City plans to return home for development. I clicked on it, and the face in the photo was one I would never forget. In my previous life, he had casually said, "Give him to my subordinates to deal with." I was tormented to the brink of death. Those horrifying memories still caused me to wake up in the middle of the night, unable to sleep. Ethan had arranged to meet me at our usual spot. When I arrived, I was ambushed, a bag thrown over my head, and beaten by a group of people. When I regained consciousness, I found myself locked in a cage, unable to stretch my limbs.
I asked them why they were doing this to me, what I had done wrong. They laughed, but no one answered.
They tied the cage with ropes and submerged me in water, pulling me out just before I drowned, repeating the process until I was on the verge of losing consciousness. In my delirium, I heard them say I was Ms. Smith's kept man. Now that their boss had returned, they intended to torment me to death.
It's not me. It's Ethan, not me.
But I realized my tongue was gone. I couldn't speak clearly, and no one could hear my pleas. On the 5th day of my captivity, I was on the brink of death. Their kicks and whippings no longer elicited any reaction from me. They grew bored and dumped me in an abandoned building on the outskirts, leaving me to die. Fortunately, Ethan found me. I saw a glimmer of hope, thinking he had come to rescue me. I dragged my broken legs towards him.
Ryan, you're so naive. Didn't you ever wonder why I always took you to see Ms. Smith? It was to cover my tracks. And you just followed along, never refusing my requests. That's your own fault. Don't blame me. Blame yourself for being poor, having no background, and always trying to be the good guy. You were destined to be the scapegoat.
He picked up a brick and smashed it into my face. First, I lost my sight and passed out from the pain. When the second blow came, I woke up from the agony but couldn't move. I don't remember how many more times I was hit. I lost consciousness. Until a fire broke out in that area, and I was carried out as a charred corpse. Reborn, I looked at the identical message on my phone, filled with anticipation for what was to come. Ethan had disappeared again. My roommates were not surprised, he had taken leave this time as well. On the 5th day, I reported to Ms. Johnson that we couldn't reach Ethan. Ms. Johnson called the police, and we, his familiar roommates, actively provided useful clues to the police, including his benefactor Ms. Smith and the bald man. Eventually, Ethan was found, but not in the way I had expected. Ethan was already gone. Because I grew up by the sea and was a strong swimmer, while Ethan couldn't swim. After being dunked in water several times, he finally succumbed. His body was found in the abandoned building. Multiple fractures, unrecognizable face, drowned, his body swollen like a balloon. The perpetrators hadn't had time to set the building on fire before they were caught. In the end, Ms. Smith, her husband, Baldwin, and everyone involved in my torment were all arrested by the police. In addition to solving the murder case, the police unexpectedly uncovered an illegal dark trade on the border. It was enough to ensure that these lawless individuals would never see the light of freedom again.
And I, from this day forward, was reborn.
The end.